Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, the second episode of Wild Isles went out yesterday and it's all about woodlands. And first of all, a bit of an apology. You know the last two of these kind of episode by episode reviews, or rather, the last episode review and the trailer review I made some slightly snarky remarks about starling mamations. Well, turns out the joke's on me, because actually their footage of the starling mamation in this one was actually quite good. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the last two videos, in my trailer review, I made some slightly caustic comments about the fact that, generally speaking, when, wildlife presenters say things like, British wildlife stands up there with the best in the world, they generally pick something, vaguely obscure, like a starling mamation, the big flocks of starlings you get when they all swarm around and you see all those lovely pretty patterns, and then compare it to something like Serengeti and like wildebeest migrations. And I've always been a bit cynical about that and thought, well, starling formations are all very well, they look quite impressive, but they're not exactly like, worldwide regarded wildlife events like the Serengeti or, caribou migrations across Canada. Well, the footage of the starling mimation in this episode is actually quite good. I was actually quite impressed by it. It's not so much the pretty patterns, I have to admit, that I really enjoyed, though there were some nice shots they got from right in the middle of the roost with these kind of remotely operated cameras where you see the starlings like swirl right around the camera, which did look quite cool. It was actually the bit afterwards when they shot it at night and you see these wonderful shots in heat-seeking camera technology where you see literally the trees lit up like Christmas with all these starlings everywhere, and they zoom right in and you can see them bickering with each other, and it looks absolutely incredible, these star-like camera shots. And then to cap it off, there's an amazing sequence where a barn owl starts to hunt the starlings at night, obviously, in the roost, and you just see the barn owl floating above the roost, and it's hovering right above, and then just sort of drops down, and you see the starlings all kind of like flow out of the way as if they're made of like a liquid, and it looks brilliant. That I have to admit, up till that point, I've been kind of resisting the urge to be impressed, mainly because of the comments I made already. But at that point, I thought, nah, you've got to be impressed. It looked amazing, and it was absolutely incredible. Apparently, it's the first time it's ever been shown on film, an owl hunting starlings at night, and I'm not surprised. But it looked absolutely brilliant. So well done to the camera team that shot that. It was brilliant, and it did kind of like it slightly reversed my prejudices to some extent, anyway. Other than that, the bit of this episode I really enjoyed was the bit with the capercaillies displaying to each other. For those of you who don't know what a capercaillie is, it's kind of like a big grouse. It's the largest grouse you get in the UK, and it makes the most amazing noise. It kind of sounds a bit like the cross between a cork coming out of a bottle and a pinball machine. I'll insert a clip of it here. So for the noise alone, it's a pretty cool sequence. But also, just the shots of them fighting and kind of bickering with each other were really amazing. The score by George Fenton, who I think also did the score for what's it called, Life in the Freezer, and a few of the other Life installments. I quite enjoyed his work in Life in the Freezer. And I can't say I was particularly impressed with it in the last episode, other than the fact that it was just nice music. But this was pretty cool, and there were several actual bits in this episode in particular I thought were pretty good musical accompaniments. There was obviously this bit which was quite nice, and it was quite upbeat strings of the two capercaillies fighting. And then there was the bit with this squirrel, which sounded very much kind of like Mission Impossible based, which was quite a nice little touch. And then finally, I really liked the bit with the or the slugs mating, when it had that kind of romantic music, a little bit sleazy with a few saxophones thrown in, which I thought was quite fun. So well done to him for all his hard work. I mean, it really, really did embellish the documentary in this particular episode. And then, oh yeah, and one final thing about the capercaillies I really enjoyed, and this is incredibly childish. David Attenborough, for reasons I don't entirely understand, referred to the male bird, the female bird as a hen, and the male bird as a cock. Now, I obviously know why he did it because it's the technical terms, but generally speaking, wildlife filmmakers don't normally use those terms, and it is really, really, really childish, and I'm quite ashamed to admit it, but I did enjoy the sound of David Attenborough saying "cork" on a BBC wildlife documentary. It sounded very funny. And then finally, the last bit I really enjoyed was the bit with the wood wide web. Now I think I've vaguely heard of this before, but it was really cool how they showed basically how the kind of the roots of all the fungi, if roots is the right word, I don't think it is, but the kind of, you know what I mean, the roots of the fungi kind of attached to all these trees in the forest, and that means that the trees can kind of exchange signals with each other. Basically, they can talk to each other, or at least exchange information about stuff. So if one of them is attacked by insects, that means that the others can prepare and basically produce more toxins to try and deter any predators. It also means that kind of actual resources can be shared throughout the wood. So if a sapling becomes kind of dehydrated during a drought and begins to kind of wilt, it can actually take water from other trees that have a plentiful supply. It's a really cool thing, and they actually show you the kind of, rather that they demonstrate the kind of the signals the trees send by kind of producing the same frequencies. So you can actually almost hear the trees communicate with each other, and they have some nice little graphics to show how the kind of the information moves between the two, which I really, really liked seeing. It was quite cool. So yeah, it was just really nice to see something that I don't think I've ever really heard about before, and it was kind of a nice change as well to look at the plants as opposed to all the other animals in the forest. Other than that, um, yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed um, I don't normally talk much about the kind of the video diaries at the end unless they kind of are pertinent to the actual filmed bit of the documentary. But I must say I really enjoyed the bit with Hamza Yassin, the cameraman who was looking for the golden eagles up in Scotland. I really enjoyed the bits where he was just talking. Can the BBC please give him a series, because he's absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed listening to him talk about the filming process. It was really fun to see kind of an upbeat, excited cameraman. Most of the time, you get two types of cameramen. You kind of get the kind of the lugubrious kind of cameramen who kind of always sound a bit, well, I don't know, always slightly depressed. They're cold, they're sitting in a hide somewhere, and they're waiting for the animals to show up. Or you get the kind of elder statesman kind of cameraman, a bit like, say, John Aitchison, who's actually in that same kind of video bit, who they always sound very professional, and they always sound very almost gentlemanly. But I wouldn't exactly say they kind of light up the screen. John Aitchison is an amazing artist, but I don't think he's the greatest kind of cameraman when it comes to talking about stuff. In fact, there's only really two cameramen that I would say made really good presenters, which are basically Simon King and Gordon Buchanan. They were the only ones that really seemed to be able to sort of move from kind of being behind the camera to in front of it. But yeah, Yassine was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed him. And then he didn't even get to actual film the Golden Eagles. That's what I thought was quite funny. And slightly sad, because they obviously sent John Aitchison up to do the proper filming. So basically, he had the fun job of basically just wandering around the Cairngorms, looking for Golden Eagles, finding them, and then getting someone else to film them. But I suppose that's how the kind of the film business works, isn't it? But I really enjoyed listening to him talk and hearing how excited he was to see Golden Eagles. And it was just great. So please, can we see more of him? Apart from that, yeah, I quite enjoyed this episode. I think I enjoyed it more than the previous one as a whole, anyway. Um, it'll be quite exciting to see the next episode when it comes out next week, and to see the bits on grasslands. I'm really looking forward to seeing the bit with the red deer fighting in, I think it's Ireland, in the kind of the water environment, when you see the deer sort of plunging through it. Um, I can't say I was particularly impressed by the fallow deer in this episode. And it wasn't bad, it was just, quite average. But yeah, hopefully the next episode will be even better than this one, and I can think of some more interesting stuff to talk about. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, then obviously just click on the subscribe button below. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to. There's a link in the video description underneath this video. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.